So your question was, why do I want to be a research engineer? Like if I can be a research scientist.
Yeah,
And
I'm
I think,
facing a dilemma right now. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's very common. Actually, I talked with a few headhunters recently, and they kind of assume that I would be really passionate about publishing papers. So they use that
Mhm.
as like enticing me. Oh, you should come to us because we encourage everyone to publish papers. But I'm not. I'm interested in product-driven research, like commercialize my research, and they all look surprised. And I'm surprised that they were surprised, because if I want to publish paper, why would I join industry? I would go to academia, be a professor, and then work with Google folks to get GPU I need, and then with completely academic freedom.
That's
And
but
yeah,
you and I both know that's not exactly true, right? Like you have to write grants. You don't necessarily get to work on what you want, and then you have to work on what the grant is doing, or you're like working with students. Whereas I feel like in industry, there's this sort of idea of like a blank check. Like you can like work on whatever research you want if you have like a good enough team, and you have all the resources. You don't have to beg Google or Adobe to give you money. The money's already there in your pocket. No.
yeah, I think the convincing party just turns from NSF or NIH or DARPA, whatever, to
Yeah.
your company. So you need to convince your company, hey, I really want to work on this self-driving car research. And the
Sure.
company said sure or no. And then it's the same. It's the same struggle with
Yeah, I
academia,
see.
I would say. And what's better is that you can join a company which share the same vision as you. Like for
Mhm.
example, if you were to join Adobe, you don't need much convincing if you want to do like cut a person out of a photo. That's just what we do.
Yeah.
You don't need to convince anyone. If you can do that research very well, you're guaranteed to be founded, as in continue to be hired.
Yeah.
And it will be really hard to come in to Adobe saying I want to build the next smartphone. As far as I
Mhm.
know, I don't think that's possible.
Or even the
And yeah,
self-driving car. That sounds like that would be kind of a stretch.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I think you're faced with the same convincing thing.
I see.
And yeah.
But you're getting compensated while you're doing it, which is a slight difference from academia, at least as a student, from what I'm used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess as a professor, yeah, you also deal with like recruiting. Whereas like, how is it recruiting interns in
Yeah, another
industry?
difference is that as professors, you do need to spend a lot of time recruiting, because once we recruit student, you have a hopefully long-lasting relationship with the student for 5 to 6 to 7 years doing their
Mhm.
PhD, and hopefully after they graduate, you can still be a mentor, mentee, or friends like relationship. And but for company, it's a bit different, because we one of the primary way that we do research is through research interns, and sometimes those internship get extended, which means they get another contract to continue to do the research. Sometimes we don't extend that, we just let the students go back to their home university and then do the research. And in either case, the relationship is not on the scale of years, it's usually on the scale of months. And if you happen to hire a intern who share the same research path as you might be able to convince them to come back and do multiple internship, and then essentially turn that into a pseudo PhD student for you.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't see that happen very often. It happens. It does happen within Adobe, within other like research labs, but it doesn't happen very frequently. And for my interns, I actually encourage them to intern elsewhere after interning once or twice with me, because although I think I'm the best mentor out there, but they should see all the other companies, all the other mentors, and then find out which style that they want and which style they want to grow into. So far I haven't had a 3-time intern. I have a couple of 2-time interns.
Yeah.
And after 2 times I said, you should find another place. And I
I
really
mean,
enjoy working with all of them. Yeah.
it's like lower stakes. Like if you choose a PhD mentor, you're stuck with them for 5 to 6 years, and hopefully it's like a really good relationship. But then when you can test out lots of different industries, lots of different companies, and see how they all feel if you go that route. But I guess from your perspective, grabbing students to work with, you're only working on small scale projects, or like they're moving along a project one step forward for someone else to pick it up and eventually finish it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you're right, like it's smaller scope. And yeah, you as the industry full-time researcher, you need to somehow stitch them together. And
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so then research engineering, now you get to just your products actually make it to like an audience, like to the people you know, you can tell them about what you're working on and they can actually experience it. But you don't necessarily have the choice or as much freedom as you have as a scientist, or what's the difference there?
Building a product usually has more constraints because you're constrained by a lot of realities. Like with papers, you only need to convince 3 reviewers and you can try multiple times. But with products, you only got a few trials and before a company gives up on certain attempts. And you also need to work with usually, hopefully, a large team of other people, researcher, engineers, like designers, you name it. And so that comes with a lot of trade-offs. Like you can't work on whatever that you think is the best. You want to align with the team, and team sometimes will, it depends on team, sometimes are bottom up, sometimes top down. Basically each one will have their ownership of the work, and they just need to push forward in that particular ownership. You cannot just say, I do not want to work on this area anymore, I'm switching to the other parts. If you do that, then people won't trust you anymore. So you won't be part of. Right. And the advantage of building such like productized research, as I call it, is you get amplified. Like for example, I'm only working on a part of a big project. For example, I work on video understanding. For example, I generate video tags for videos, but I don't know any other things about like shipping a product. I don't know how to do logins. I don't know how to handle concurrencies. I don't know how to do Kubernetes. All these fancy words that I don't know. And that's when my impact get amplified. Without them, my research will only be a Google Colab notebook, and like nobody will actually use it. It won't suit their workflow. But by working in this bigger team, hopefully we will think about what's the workflow, what's the user journey, and then how can we help them achieve their task. I think that's helping me to kind of prioritize my work.
So as you've kind of like shifted from research scientist to engineer, it sounds like, have you been working with larger teams? Like, I guess as a scientist, it's like you, maybe one other collaborator, and then like some students, versus like a research engineer, you're part of just like a group working on a project.
Like yes, as like I think the title of research scientist and research engineer is sometimes misleading, so I will use the work context. So when I'm working on the research paper with someone, it's usually a small cohort, sometimes as small as 2, me and my intern, and the biggest time maybe 5, maybe with a few other Adobe researcher and probably their university advisor. That's as much as they get, like 5. But with this kind of productized prototype thingy, there's no, like, the lower bound is probably 5 to 10 people because you need certain people to gain momentum, and then there's really no upper limit. Like you can, as long as you can convince people to join your efforts, you can group all of them.
And how long is that sort of project last? Like the internship projects last a couple months, and then maybe you publish a couple papers a year or 1 paper a year.
For internship, it's Adobe's intern program is 13 weeks plus the July 4th shutdown week, so calendar week is 14 weeks. And then afterwards, either we extend the internship or we just let the student go back to their university, taking their code with them, of course, and then they just keep working on it. And usually, for a different project, it had different time spans. Like project in graphics, like SIGGRAPH, usually require more implementation, more system building, tends to get longer, a year, maybe longer. And computer vision and HCI project tend to be on the shorter side, like maybe half a year will be enough. It depends heavily on the project, the students, the fits and everything.
But then the research engineers, or the more like prototype product projects, those are the ones they could take up anywhere from like a year to 2 years. Even longer. They can decide how long to stick to a particular effort. I mean, as long as the effort is still going. If not, it's killed by like higher levels. And so I guess who decides that? So it's like the higher ups, like your manager or your manager's manager is the one kind of leading that effort.
I think in my personal experience, there's not a mandate, hey, Ding, you have to work on this particular thing. It's more like I just grab all the information I can have, and then I make my own judgment on which team or which tech transfer or which research I should work on. It's and I think working on this particular efforts, because I trust in this efforts, I think it will have good return in the future. It's like investment, right? Like some people choose this stock, some people choose that stock. I choose and like an index file or whatever, so that suits me. And similarly here, like usually there are lots of efforts going on, either research paper efforts or like research prototype, like future product efforts. And each researcher will just use their own judgment to choose
align
one.
their interests with what they like, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So like from the inside, like you guys are all there, you see someone who's like working on just like projects and prototypes and other people working on papers. Everyone kind of gets treated the same from the inside. Like there's no sort of like two different groups or judgment. It's just all mixed around and people kind of wave back and forth between the two.
Yeah. People are the same. Like there's no, like it's very fluid. Like I still publish, I just don't spend 100% of my time mentoring interns anymore. Sometimes I work with university professors directly as a collaboration, and then sometimes people spend all their time working on papers. I think it's a continuous slider, and we are in the same group, and I don't think there is any different treatment. Yeah.
And I guess, what's the incentive then? It's just whatever drives you. If you want to publish more papers, that sort of builds up your academic profile, or if you just want to keep working on prototypes, or you're like fascinated by a certain project, or there's also like financial, I don't know.
Yeah, I think
motivation.
I think on industry, one of the incentive is the kind of the rewards every year, and then that usually it's measured by this intangible word of impact, and it consists of many aspects. It could be papers, it could be tech transfers, it could be new product, it could be a lot of things. So and then that's also brings back to the topic. There's no different treatment because everything can be counted as an impact, and it depends on whether the thing you're working on is impactful. Like you're publishing a lot of paper that's not really insightful, it's not helpful. If you publish one like best paper that lots of people are talking about and inspiring, that's really helpful. Similarly with product, you can ship tiny features like that nobody's going to use every quarter, or you can wait a few years and ship a new Photoshop. That would be much more impactful. So I think,
I guess it both helps and hurts that it's like intangible. It's just like this nebulous impact.
Exactly. Nebulous is the right term. Yeah.
Well, that's exciting though. What sort of impact are you looking to make in the next couple of years?
Since I graduate, I think I slowly transitioned from wanting to publish a lot of paper to wanting to build some like research prototypes that can help end users, and that can be seen as my kind of drop in the number of papers that I work on, because I just no longer value papers that much at my current stage of career. Maybe later on I will crank up my paper publishing ability, but right now I'm fine with just keep it at a maintainable level, just keep me in touch with the research community, while I spend a lot of my working time building whatever research prototypes and products that
Do you think there was like a moment where like someone picked up one of your research prototypes and they like liked playing with it, that you said, okay, I want to make more products? Or was there like just a project that made you jump? Like there was at least some inflection point, right? Like where you started going, all right, I'm going to work more on product. I
think it's I think there is internal and external factors. For me, I think I've always been like, I'm fascinated by applications, product, users. I'm not so much like, I want to learn all the math and physics behind all the phenomena. I'm just not that person. And then also externally, I think being exposed in an industry research lab, I just get to see a lot of the process from a early stage prototype to how to the end that's delivered. And I was also fascinated by that. And I thought, I want to try that and see how it's like. And because for the paper one, I've published some, not a lot, but maybe a few dozens of papers. And I think I've got the sense of the end-to-end pipeline from ideation to writing the paper and writing the code, writing the paper, and then getting the presentation and then advertising. I think that pipeline, I have a pretty good handle of what it is. But for this like new thing, I'm more excited for now.
So it's almost a novelty of like trying to understand how that pipeline works. If you ever wanted to make a product, now you kind of would understand a little bit better about the whole pipeline, ins and outs.
Yeah,
So,
and also another frustration that I have is a lot of my own research, not to criticize anybody else's. My own research, most of them are not directly applicable to any products, which is understandable. We are aiming like 5, 10 years, like 20 years ahead. And and but I want to work on product driven research. So
yeah.
I want to be able to kind of build this prototype to better understand, hey, if I were to work on 2 intern project next year, which topic I should choose so that they are more grounded, so that they are more impactful in the sense that it can directly impact existing product or new products. I don't have to wait 5 to 10 years before that happens.
Yeah, it's less a theory or an idea of like, oh, if we had all the technology, this would be great, but more of like, what can we actually do that's within reach now, but isn't being done right now. Yeah.
Right.
Well, that only makes it harder for me to decide what I want to do, if I want to do research engineering or a research scientist. I feel like I still need to accumulate a little bit more of like momentum with papers in terms of like figuring out the pipeline and like smoothing out like how to work with collaborators, like how to go through the ins and outs of like ideation, exploration, research, and paper writing.
Yeah. I think you made a great point. You said you wanted a few more papers in the pipeline so that you can get to know all the ins and outs. I think I don't know if I talked this with you or somebody else. I definitely share this with a lot of my interns, which is I encourage them to value quantity versus quality in the beginning of their PhD. So try to publish more. Don't worry too much about the quality. Of course, you don't want to publish. But still, you want to focus on the quantity, because once you get the pipeline running, then you know which part you're lacking, which part you enjoy. Maybe very quickly you realize you really hate writing code. Then you should try to pivot project that does more, I don't know, math, more physics, equations. And maybe you really like 3D printing, fixing 3D printers. Then you should gravitate towards fabrication, how to improve existing hardwares. But without working on many projects, many means probably 3 to 5 more, like then without working on that many, like you won't have that sense. And
even just like surviving a deadline, each deadline gets progressively easier. There's always hiccups along the road, or you're not really sure what's going to happen, but you just start to get a sense for like what's more important to be spending your time on. And then like once you free up the time that you were wasting before, just like running cycles or running experiments that weren't going to be used, then you start becoming more efficient, and at least better at paper writing. That's what I found myself also. Figuring out that story. But yeah, so now I guess let's turn to the personal stuff.
Okay, let me stop the recording.